All right. Good day to all. Sam here with you on a Thursday, March 22nd here. We're kind of mid-morning. And as we do now, when we're evaluating what coins to analyze in video, we put it to a vote amongst the members, and one of our winners today was Ubiq. I think I'm pronouncing that right, Ubiq. Ubiq, UBQ. This is Ubiq to Bitcoin here on Bittrex. This is a 12-hour chart here to give a little perspective. Now, before we get into that, just a couple of quick things I want to mention. For those of you that are interested in more traditional, I guess we'll call that, more traditional asset classes, i.e. equities, futures markets, and the Forex markets, if you have an interest in seeing these techniques applied to those more traditional asset classes, we have just launched a new YouTube channel, which I'll just reference here. So the only difference between the two is the plural, is the S on so the crypto is Trade Devil singular, and if you're looking for equities, Forex, or futures, it's Trade Devils plural, the idea being that we're looking at multiple asset classes here. So just launched it yesterday. First video is up, happened to be on Tesla. So if those asset classes are of interest to you, you might take a look at that and see if that's something to add into your portfolio of where you get information or ideas or some of your learning channels. So just to keep that in mind, that will be getting updated. You'll see a lot more content there as we move forward. So that said, back onto Ubiq. So let me get it over here now. So I've got the 12-hour here just to give it some perspective. So you can see it's been quite technical. We had a very clear 5-wave structure, came up here and put in this high here. And then, it's interesting that even on these larger degrees here, you can see how clearly this follows an Elliott path. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down we go for the A wave, get a very, very hard to miss that 3 wave there, and then we finish down at 7. Now, one thing that I thought was kind of interesting to note here is we take swing high to swing low. Yeah, we go up to the golden zone, we get a little wick through it, but look how we end up and come down here and get the algo target almost to the tick. They front run it by a couple of ticks, and then we get the reaction. So kind of interesting, very, very technical trading. So we can look now here as to where we are. We've got a technical low. We know we've got a good low here to work with. Now, of course, we're going deep, no question about it. So as we would with any pivot, we were trying to qualify and see if we have some trading reference here with which we can analyze this coin for any opportunity to get into the market. It looks to me like, as so much of the alts have done, so many of the alts, I should say, have done this. We've gone into these deep retracements. So Bitcoin being the easy example, went to the 786 to the tick. So here we sit with an alt here spread to Bitcoin that looks like it's coming in to maybe give a visit to the 786. So we want to try and get a handle on it and see if we have any confluence down here that would add some support to the idea that that's an area to be looking to be a buyer. Now, we can do a couple of obvious things. So we can say, okay, well, if we're coming down here, we can just look left and see what we had prior resistance up here, potentially offering some support. Well, we hesitated. There was the drop down, then the big reaction. So, if you don't want to be so technical about it, you can just look at this. Well, we're coming back to an accumulation zone. And that's a reasonable way to look at it. So we're certainly in the range to where if this is going to have longevity, this is a reasonable place to be looking for entry. So let me pull that up. But we can be a little bit more precise about that. So I'm going to take this down. Let's go to a 3-hour, and then we'll kind of zoom in here and see. A little bit tricky on this correction because it's been somewhat straight down. We've had a couple of little pops here, which we can use to help identify where we are. So actually, I may have to go down to the hourly here to show this to you. So let me bring it over here. So a couple of things that we can see clearly. So what we're looking for is, again, as I've mentioned many times, it's a bit of a reverse engineering to kind of get a count on it when you have this kind of data to say, okay, well, where are we? If this thing is correcting, can we apply Elliott's rule set and tendencies and nuances here to get a handle on where we might be in a wave count, and can that be advantageous to us? So what I see here, the obvious things are we get these somewhat sharp retracements here. So trend is clear, obviously down. So we get this. So I can see this here. I get from my swing high to my swing low here, I get this little pop. That's from this high to low here. That's the deepest retracement I get, and we don't even make the 60, but we come right to the Vegas wave, and then we rip down. Here's the algo target, so they get that. So that's kind of interesting to me. So then if I look here, now I would do the same thing, but I would use this pivot here. So coming to this low. So here now we go right to the golden zone, and then we roll right over, and now we've come back and algo targets have been met. So looking at that, I can organize this and say, well, that looks like I've got an A wave here. This is this straight down. Here's the retracement into the B, and then it looks like I finish in 5 to come down here and put in my C wave. But of course, we keep going. So what is that likely to mean? Well, typically that means we've gone into a complex correction, if you want to call it that. But the anticipation might have been that the correction was over here and we were starting up into a 1-2. Doesn't happen. So many of the alts did this very same thing. So how do we organize that? What do we do with it? Well, WXY is there just for the purpose of allowing us to connect to ABCs, and this may not be done here. Excuse me. So it looks to me like I've got an ABC down into a W. X wave is the correction to that ABC. We get the X wave here, and it looks like we go down. We finish. See, the steepness of this, makes it a little bit problematic, but you can see the very clear 3 wave. So it's corrective, of course, and then we roll over here. So it looks to me like what we've got is a WXY, and we're just connecting these two. So if I do the obvious things, work from this swing here, well, that no surprise here, we've gone fairly sharp. This wick was pretty steep here. But we know if that's an ABC, a B wave can go as high as the 786, just like a 2 wave. It's the extreme. So we get a spike through the golden zone, but we've come shy of the 786. Then we roll over here. Now look down here. So we've got the algo target sitting down here, and then we've got the 786. So we're building a little confluence zone down here. All right, that's what we're after. Can we get some technical confluence to support the idea that this is teeing up as a buy zone? It certainly would complete the pattern. So we get this combination of pattern, price, fib swings, algo targets, all the things, all the tools that we use here, at least that I use in this methodology that I try to teach to you, as to how to qualify this as a potential pivot. And it's always an option, right? So you don't have to buy the pivot, but you have a candidate here for a technical low. So you certainly could wait to see if there's a reaction, because we're going counter trend. We're trying to pick the low. Some people will tell you that's never worth it. You just wait for that to react if it's going to react, and then you take the first retracement. That's the more conservative way to approach that. Look for a move off of this in 5. Wait for the retracement, and then you're looking for the third to come out of that, which is going to be your money-making wave. So that's the more conservative way. Or nothing wrong with taking a little bite at it down here. You wouldn't want to go overly heavy, but that's a reasonable place to take a first bite at it. And if you get a reaction, well, that's the whole idea. So then it becomes a function of, well, am I comfortable giving a percentage of that back, knowing that the 2 wave is likely inevitable? There will be a retracement at some point. And are you comfortable giving some of that back? And maybe it's a partial profit. If we hit some targets up here, you're going to have plenty of resistance to work through on the way back up. So those are decisions you've got to make with regards to trade management. Partial is always a good idea. I'm a big fan of taking a partial. If you like what you see, then it's a chance to reload if you get that wave 2, when you get the wave 2. It's a chance to reload. Now you've already banked some profit, so you're kind of reloading with house money. So, we are certainly going to have to deal with resistance on the way back up. So given that we have this marked, and just to declutter the chart, so a few things worth noting. So if I look, if I take it from my B wave here, this is a pivot that had some significance. So if I look here, so there's to the 50. So this is kind of interesting, right to the 50. So, do we have to fatten up that target down there? Possibly. Here's another thing, you always have to look at all the way halfway back. So if I look here and I, kind of start playing with this, and well, there's, with that's to the 38 target. Do we get anything here? That's something worth considering. This is the one we look at here. So it looks like we might have to fatten that zone up a little bit. So those are all the resistance levels. So if we're going to pivot down here, and I'll just use that, I'll just split the difference in the box. Well, we're going to have this resistance to deal with on the way back up. No question about it. So those are those potential places where you know you're going to find some resistance there. There'll be the algorithms written to sell it. So that's a likely place, you know, if we get the reaction down here and we start to move, we get a new trend established, well, that's a reasonable place to be looking for a partial profit. You know, that's not a bad looking trade right there. So all of those have to be considered, but you want to pay attention to the significant pivots on the way back up. So it's kind of interesting that that 50 and the 618 kind of line up. So now I'm hypothetical down here. I don't have my pivot yet. You know, for all we know, it's putting in the pivot right now. But I would be targeting this zone here. So I'd want to be alerted if we break to a new low. I'd want to know about that. So that's a reasonable spot to put a target or put an alert on. And then knowing that we've got to face that resistance. You know, the other things that you might do, that since this is significant here, I might look to that as just further confirmation. If we can break this channel, this is a bit of a supply line, so you may think of it that way. So that's a reasonable spot where you might look for a reaction there, so as you get some geometry. Potentially, there's your 1, 2. Right, so then that's kind of back to that. Do we get a reaction here and then taking the first retracement between the 50 and the 618? That's the conservative way to take it. So all just kind of lining the thing up. We're looking for entry down here in this zone. There's a little help maybe from the oscillators here. I probably want to zoom in on that a bit. So, you know, I wouldn't call it, you know, a beautiful oscillator setup, but you know, this a little. If we can come down here and bump this into our hot box, that likely pulls the RSI back down. So it's just a recycle. So it's always about, is the energy potential there to take it from, you know, 30 to 70? You know, can we get that kind of energy, right? You can see it here. So here's a good example of it, tapping and then up and then back we go again, up and then back we go again. So that's kind of the idea there. So, and then looking in here, if we're really, you know, we want to be really precise about it, you can pretty clearly see we get a 1, 2, and you know, is that looks, this could be 3, 4. We'd be coming down here, so we'd have overlapped the 1. So this could be A, B, C, the 3 waves. If we're going, thus a diagonal, right? So let's be clear about it. So we overlap, so we'd be looking for the full retracement here, and so note we've come right to the 23.6. High probability zone for a 4th. So it looks like we may well have an ABC. Here's our 2, ABC into the 3rd, ABC into the 4. So potentially we now have this ending diagonal setting up to finish our C wave, and then we have these targets down here. So I would check this as well, just to, you know, be conscious of it. Swing from my 2 to my 3, we come right to the 50, and so again, so you see this continually lining up down here. So this hot box, while we've had to lengthen it a little bit as we've worked through all of these pivots, you know, here's a pretty reasonable target right here. So anywhere in this zone here, that's all a loading zone, as I would describe it. You know, not a place to back up the truck, but a place to start first. You know, a good place to maybe get wet, and you know, first order, put it in, see if you get the reaction. Stop is reasonable. You know, we're damn near, you know, coming towards, well, where's zero? Zero's not too far away. So, you know, there's not a lot of downside here, but I would certainly still keep a stop on it. So we don't want to just buy it blindly. So money management, always, you know, part of the decision-making process. So if we're going to come down here, yeah, I'd have a stop on it. No doubt about it. But it looks like it's setting up there. I think maybe a little bit early to be a buyer just yet. But if we come down here and we tap this, what is that, 17, 77, 14, anywhere in that range, looks like that's a good first entry. So one to be watching, definitely a contender, right? So we'll keep an eye on that one, and that's about it for today. Okay, guys, back to you later.